Hi, this is a quick video that's been triggered really by the events. I call it the insurgency on Capitol Hill last night in America. Um, and it's really about white privilege and how it affects the way we run businesses in our societies. But I'm going to start with a story about a Mel Brooks film, which ran, it must be 20, 30 years ago now, called Blazing Saddles, in which a black sheriff is brought into a completely unknown western town called Rock Ridge to bring order because the place is running amok. And it's running amok by design because actually the inhabitants of Rock Ridge are being driven out so that they can put a highly profitable railroad through Rock Ridge. Now, the scene that's relevant here is one when the sheriff, having overcome the man-beast called Mongo, one of the great terrorizers of this village, has left the people feeling so happy that one of the sweetest, dearest old ladies comes up to him in the sheriff house with a homemade apple pie. Well, it would be apple pie. It's what you do in the Wild West back then. With a home-baked apple pie, and he offers it to, but she offers him the apple pie in gratitude, and then just as she's leaving, she says, "Of course, Sheriff, you will have the decency not to tell anybody that I gave you this apple pie." She's a little old white lady. And the reason that story, it was a fantastic moment, beautifully played. I mean, the timing of the banter was perfect, etc. But the important thing is that every situation of unfairness and inequality is maintained and sustained by silence. And the events that took place on Capitol Hill yesterday were always going to happen at some stage. Everybody knew what was about to go down, but everybody sat on their hands. So what is white privilege? In everyday terms, white privilege is the opportunity for people to behave like total jackasses without pushback from the legitimate authorities of whatever area you're in. So these people have come along to campaign for Trump, saying that the election which he lost was stolen, even though there have been tens of court cases in which Mr. Trump couldn't prove that there'd been massive vote rigging, as he alleged. He told his followers that their democratic right was being stolen and that they needed to fight for their rights, and so they came and did what they did. Now, sitting there watching these scenes, I was staggered. This is the Capitol, the seat of government of the world's most powerful nation, and I'm watching its own citizens just rampage, roll over any security arrangements to be made, ending up in Nancy Pelosi's chair, pictures, selfies being taken by people. And I thought to myself, if this had been a Black Lives Matters demonstration, there'd be dead bodies all over the place. The truth is that for some 400-500 years, Black Americans have been shot, sometimes just for being black, and without any pushback at all. That's white privilege. The ability to exercise your whims, your fancies, however irrational they are, with minimum pushback from authorities, sometimes a slap on the wrist. And everybody going, boo-hoo, isn't that terrible, and so on and so forth. And then we just revert to the status quo ante. So Biden comes along and says, this is not who we are. And again, this goes back to that whole shibboleth of silence. Actually, no, it is who America is. Over 70 million people voted for Mr. Trump. That's a lot of Americans. And it just shows how deeply divided the country is, that so many people share Trump's frankly racist, some say white supremacist view of life, which has caused so much division in his country. The only difference in this case was that the people who were behaving with this white privilege were doing it to white people, and that's what's causing the outrage. If a demonstration takes place, property is destroyed, these people were ramming beautifully carved doors, windows. I mean, this is a property of the United States of America. This isn't somebody's private home. This is the seat of government itself. The place was being vandalized. There were many other scenes shared on viral videos which didn't appear in the mainstream news clips. Black people have been shot for carrying what looked like a gun but actually turned out to be a mobile phone. And when the whole matter is discovered, again, usually you get a slap on the wrist. So what happened on Capitol Hill for the first time was that the majority population was being treated the way minority ethnics have been treated for 300 to 400 years. Nothing about the behavior we saw there is new. The only people it's new to are the people who've covered their eyes for the past several centuries, pretending it's not been going on. So what's the solution? Well, we shall see. One thing is for certain. If you don't respond to these events, they have a nasty way of repeating themselves. Just as wanton violence against minority ethnics in America, often by authority figures, has remained unpunished. If these people get the sense that they can treat their fellow citizens the way they have always treated minority ethnics in their country, America's in for a long, hard year ahead, and Biden's going to struggle. If he doesn't prosecute, and there are so many people whose faces are on display, if everybody who was at that event and can be identified is not prosecuted, what you're saying is that white privilege still extends to subverting the democracy of the United States, in which case you're not going to have a country you can manage. Certainly, the optics of those situations around the rest of the world, well, some of us are communications professionals. America has destroyed her reputation, and she is going to now have to go back and start to rebuild it. And the starting point of rebuilding anything, from business through personal life, is facing realities. Stop telling ourselves the little lies that sometimes may shame us, sometimes are uncomfortable to observe, but the little narratives we've told ourselves to excuse this sort of behavior, that's been running in America for centuries. This is how the United States is. And all it's shown is that if these behaviors are tolerated for one group of people in the polity, everybody is going to pay a price in the future. It's just that now the rest of wider society is beginning to pay the price that minority ethnics have for centuries. So there we have it. Silence is not golden. Facing the truth is uncomfortable, but absolutely necessary. And going forward, if America's democracy is going to be protected, then everybody has to live within and under the rule of law, even white people.